QR code, not the sign-in sheet, for committee members.
I did it.
Okay. Hey, Ken.
Do you,
Okay, so, it says adoption of agenda.
Yeah.
So let's adopt the agenda.
So move.
And second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions,
We have to-
abstentions or recusals? None. So we have ourselves an agenda. And maybe now I should look at it. Okay, so, Andrew, do you want to take the application for DOT?
Sure. The first item on the agenda is application to DOT for a shuttle service from Academy Express. And we have Pat Condren here from Academy to explain the changes, if any, in the routes the buses have been running. Pat, you want to come on up here and speak near the mic and, or have a seat even? And,
Okay, while we're waiting, we have, I should introduce our committee. So our committee members around the table are Jay Adolf, Alex Bell, Ken Coughlin, Jami, Floyd, happy birthday, and Doug Kleiman. And online, we have Elizabeth Caputo, and we may have Andrew Rigie at some point, but I don't see him right now.
yeah.
Please go ahead.
Okay, please start, Pat. Thank you.
Good evening, thank you, Mark. My name is Patrick Condren. I'm the Community Relations Representative for Academy Express Academy Bus. We're the operator of the Columbia University shuttle bus system, which has been operating here for about 20 years. Ketsi Morales is on the screen with me. Thank you. She's our operations supervisor for this service and appreciate you being with us tonight, Ketsi. During recent years, we have coordinated with New York City DOT. I think Colleen's here with us as well. And to establish and maintain with bus stop utilization for the sufficient and safe use of curbside access at designated locations, such as these 3 stops located in Community Board 7. We are here tonight available to answer questions relative to these longstanding stops utilized by students of Columbia. This bus shuttle system has been operating over 20 years. Academy's been the operator for the last 11 going on 12. Since 2018, we've been utilizing electric buses in the fleet, and the majority of the buses are electric buses. They operate primarily only on the main streets in this area, Broadway and onto 96th Street. We're not operating on side streets of any kind. I was asked about that before, not in this area. As you may be aware, Academy is widely utilized in New York City since 1968. We operate part of the MTA systems and the routes and the different times and places, Thanksgiving Day Parade, Marathon, to name a few. We're a premier privately owned company in the New York City area, providing extensive bus operations, superior safety and operational focus and expertise. We work with Academy University Shuttle Operations Transportation Management Groups. They're a good group, local, they're right here, and we operate at their direction. And our job is also to maintain compliance with US DOT, New York State DOT, and New York City DOT, which in this case is a compliant bus stop application that we're presenting to you this evening.
And let us tell everybody that you're stopping at existing MTA bus stops, correct?
That's correct. All 3 are existing MTA bus stops. We have pictures. They are, and there's currently, I checked personally myself, as you know, I do this stuff and go out. 3 days ago, there's no construction there. There's no Con Ed trucks out there. There's no blocks. There's no scaffolding at any of these 3
That's
locations. Exactly. So we are at the curbside at the MTA bus stops. And as you know, we coordinate with MTA, the New York City Police Department, and New York City DOT on daily operational stuff. Additionally, well, that's what I was just saying, we operate with the MTA when needed to ensure safe and smooth operations for all. This application for your review is in front of 214 West 96th Street, which is a large bus layover zone and also a bus stop. It's a very long, large location. The other 2 is one's northbound, the other southbound at 2804 and 2701 Broadway, each an existing bus stop, MTA. We thank you for your review and advisory. There are 10 buses operating Monday to Saturday between 7 a.m. and 12:35 p.m. or a.m. or midnight area at these locations. Ms. Morales and I are here to answer any questions for you. I have briefly with me, I didn't take all the stuff. This is all online by the Columbia University shuttle systems and schedules. And this is the map of the whole system. And as you can see, the 1, 2, 3 on the bottom, on the south
Yeah,
end.
and I looked at the map and apparently you go north from 96th Street. No, it's not any south from there. It's an intercampus shuttle. It goes to Upper Manhattan and to over the George Washington Bridge to New Jersey, correct?
Some of them, there's a different, it is a route A, route B, route C, that kind of thing. One of the goes up to, but that's covers the map, yeah.
So, I'm sorry, the last question before just out of curiosity, if one of your buses is approaching an MTA bus stop and there's a local bus in that stop, you just wait for it to
They hold
clear?
back.
Hold it
Yeah,
back.
it's a procedure. And these individual drivers, guys who know each other a lot of times too, so they work together, they're on.
Okay, great.
I'm sorry.
What is this? Is it a permit? Is it a license?
Yeah, if I can tell you a quick story, it's good you're a transportation committee meeting. Every government looks for revenue generating and control of its stops. And curbside access became big in San Francisco. I'm a senior citizen these days. There were a whole bunch of people couldn't get to, to their regular city bus because all these young fellows were getting on with their Starbucks and going out to Silicon Valley in San Francisco. So
Right.
Google and the rest of these guys came into the city hall in San Francisco and said, what can we do to make this work? We'll pay you for the bus stops. And since that's what's evolved. And the curbside access evolved into a system, which is a good thing for compliance, and organizational, working with the local authorities. And it started in San Francisco. In New York State, it began first in 2007 as a proposal. It went into 2010 and 2011, and it went into effect August 13th, 2013. It mainly designed for what we know as the Chinatown bus services and Megabus on the west side. But over that time, the original thought was not necessarily to bring in school buses by definition, which were considered a school bus carrying students. So here we are, we want to be compliant with the city DOT, we coordinate, so the stop will say MTA, 101 or whatever route it might be, and Columbia University shuttle bus.
So
Designated.
permit issued by DOT?
Yes,
And is it a fixed term?
it's a 3-year renewal.
Okay.
That's a good question.
I wish
Let's
we
keep
could
going.
say we have the same percentage of electric buses as you have.
Well, we had the largest fleet of
It's on
electric
hold
buses.
now. It's on hold now.
Let's keep going around.
Hi,
Hi,
Carey.
Carey, welcome. No question, questions, Ken?
Yeah, maybe I missed this, have you been stopping at these stops all along and we're just approving them now, or is it, were these new services?
It's my understanding, and city DOT, I think, is on the ball with us, that these stops would be considered grandfathered because they were being operated, for the purposes of the general public, which includes students, and this is, what they're driving the cars around town.
But you've been stopping there in years previous,
Oh,
or?
yeah, this system has been operating for over 20 years.
Okay. All right, at these
We're
very-
operating it almost.
At these
12 years.
very stops.
And we coordinate with city DOT, and we've moved the stop here, stop there with.
Got it. I think Ken's question is, are these particular stops ones that you've been using for a period of years?
Yes, these
Okay.
3 stops in Community Board 7 have been used.
Okay, and are these full-size, like 44 or whatever seat buses, or is something
How
different?
big of us?
These coaches are 35 footers, they're not 45 footers, they're the shorter of the versions, but they're electric buses, 8 out of 10 right now. If an electric bus breaks down, we have a diesel powered hybrid to operate with.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? Howard?
Nope,
Jamie?
no, thank you.
Doug?
Just, I think you already answered it, but there's no change to the physicality of the space, right? So the same spaces, we're not enlarging these spaces. There's no change to it. It's just renewing this ability for you to stop at these very same spaces.
Good question. Yes, there's no change or modification to the curbside access on the existing MTA bus stops.
Great,
Okay.
thank you.
Elizabeth was on on Zoom. Did you have a question? I don't see her, so I'm gonna ask mine, which is, are you just in and out, or does the bus linger and wait for students?
Again, good question. The layover zones are further north, on property now, on campus, because they have a larger campus. In the past, it was under the overpass in different places, for a short period of time, driver needs to go to the bathroom or some such thing. But we do not have any layover zones. Although the existing 96th Street stop is partially an MTA layover, so
Yes.
once we have our authorization, we could lay over there, but we're just gonna keep going.
Yeah, well, and 96th Street obviously has been in the paper recently.
Oh, that's right.
So
Oh, boy.
whatever we can do to minimize the impact on 96th Street,
We want
even if you
people-
move the capacity
Of course.
somewhere else, that's gonna
Right.
be a good thing for us.
Right.
Okay, is anybody on the?
There was somebody with their hand up in the audience.
I was just about to say, go to the audience. Is somebody online or somebody here?
Yeah, Jessie, that.
I see a gentleman in
We
the
have
audience.
Dan Freeman. I just promoted him.
Jessie just promoted Dan Friedman.
Okay, so let's hear from Dan Friedman and then this gentleman. Go ahead, sir. Oh, well, assuming Dan is up, sir.
Dan, are you there? Well,
I'm here.
Okay,
Okay, your comment about minimizing the impact on the congestion on 96th Street is very well taken. Having the Columbia bus, which I travel as an alumnus sometimes, stop at the layover stop for the MTA is about the most traffic congesting idea yet. That stop does not have one bus in it. That stop has anywhere from 3 to 5 buses there, oftentimes not allowing another bus to enter the layover. It was not large enough for layover currently, and putting another bus, which I actually used. I mean, I'm not saying it to try to say not in my backyard. I'm saying it because we are adding yet more congestion to 96th Street, which everyone already knows is in the highest 10% of the vehicle problems and accidents. Everyone knows is completely congested, which is why your reference to wanting to have the dedicated bus lane is being considered now. To actually
good.
throw fuel on that is inappropriate.
thanks very much for your comment. We'll be moving on. Sir, give us your name and then your comment, please.
Hi, hello, and my camera, I'm just curious how to plug this.
The camera is actually part of the microphone.
you're right.
And is there like a time limit? I'm sorry, how does this work? Is my,
There's a time limit, but.
but a minute or so, yeah, whatever. My name is William Michaels. I live at 214 West, 96th Street. The gentleman misspoke earlier. It's 214. It's on the south side. I will concur with the person who was just speaking, online. There is no way that corner can handle more bus layover traffic, please. I have photographs from the last few days since I happened to see the sign up, which is posted for the wrong time for this meeting. And on Sundays, Mondays and Tuesdays, there are 2 to 3 buses. Sometimes they're just sitting there laying over, as you say, somebody mentioned, for hours.
You're talking about MTA buses laying over?
MTA buses, I've noticed MTA buses. The noise, the number of them people waiting for these buses, the buses are sitting there. There are people standing around waiting for the buses. It already, and the gentleman mentioned that if there's city buses in lane, then this bus will hold back. There's no place to hold back crossing from west to east across Broadway. You've got the corner of of Broadway and 96th Street there. Already the city buses are having to double park just to pick up people. And in the last year or two, they've already expanded the bus section on 96th Street, taking up now half the block. And I have to say, we're also contending at any given time with not 1, but 2 tamale vendors, illegal booksellers. The newspaper stand has expanded his way all the way from there to 96th Street, another clothing seller. I know several of the homeless and folks who are sitting on the street there. The curb is already filthy. Somebody else in my household works at New York Presbyterian. They take the subway right up Broadway to 165th Street that could not be more convenient. I do not see the urgency for why we, residents of this neighborhood, should bear the brunt of a commercial entity. Doing this, we already have enough problem. And if you're somebody, and on top of that, right across the street from 214 West 96th Street, a permit has been, or application has been put in to demolish the building across the street there, which is, at the moment, there may not be any scaffolding right in our building. That can change in a minute. And do I think that if there is an approval for these 10 buses an hour, 10 buses to be circulating through here, maybe an hour, there is no way that our corner there, in particular at 214 West 96th Street, can bear the additional burden of more vehicular
Okay.
mass transit, and.
I think Mr. Condren has some answers to some of your.
That would be
I want to
great.
clarify, and thank you for the comments, and if I lived there, I'd feel the same way you do. And truth be told, this is not additional bus service, this is an existing service the last 20 years. You hear from my original presentation, you say.
Today, yes.
Tonight, okay.
Yes.
So this is an existing set of circumstances that shares with MTA at this location, which if there is a situation there, there's also, the great people who run the bus service at MTA.
It's the M96 and the M106
And
layover
the
there.
layovers could possibly move. We don't stop in that layover zone and we don't make noise because we have electric buses. We have the largest fleet, so we.
Do you carry people?
These are Columbia University shuttle. This is the.
You carry people? though?
Yes.
You stop?
We're not gonna have a dialogue between
I
us.
mean, that's
Okay, sure.
the whole idea. Buses are designed, trucks are designed to carry stuff. Everybody orders stuff. We carry the people and we carry it safely. And then this is an existing service to the people. It's a public service.
Pat, can you explain
Sure.
when the buses are coming southbound to the 96th Street area and going to the layover, what route do you use?
We come down Broadway. We don't go on the side.
I
streets.
understand,
Yeah.
but how do you get to 96th and West End if you don't,
Well,
you go down
Seventy
97?
back and around. So Ketsi, is on, I'm not sure, it's the second one. It depends on traffic too, and directly, I think Ketsi's on. Our drive around is make the left and come back and around because it's wide enough. We have shorter buses on those.
Yeah, but how do you get to 96th and West End is the question. Do you
Oh,
go
West
west
End.
on
Oh,
97th Street?
We're going
And then-
outbound. No, we're going outbound, 214. On the south side.
When you're
When
coming
you're coming
southbound?
south,
Oh, we're coming
You
from
go
Broadway. Yeah,
west
we're coming
on
from Broadway.
97.
We overshoot 96 and come back.
You do a
Up Broadway,
U-turn
yes.
on 96th
Yeah,
Street?
and it's wide enough with
I
a short
see.
bus.
Really?
Okay,
That's correct.
All right.
I'm wrong on that.
so, are there any, yes, certainly.
Should follow up, from your neighbor's question. And I appreciate your comment about packages and people, not packages. But why can't these people take the subway or a public bus? Why must, or a series of public buses, why must they have your shuttle?
Well, that's out of my purview. We're the contractor to Columbia, and we provide this service as we do to a number of other New York City establishments. And we have become part of the system in the last 50 years. Notwithstanding that, I don't have the answer for you now on that one. I know it's not an unpopular program, that is utilized at different times and places, but I think the answer, if the Columbia folks were here, would likely say, I mean, it's a matter, these are your children, these are students, in real life. And this is the service to be within a campus. And there are two campuses that operate in New York City, primarily in Manhattan, and that's NYU and Columbia, and we operate both of them.
I have a couple of questions if I may ask.
Briefly, because I want to move this along. We've got a full agenda and a full room.
Thank you. Are there other low discounts for students to be able to take public transportation to Columbia on the MTA?
No.
And on clarification, you're suggesting that the bus, these shorter buses will make U-turns right on 96th Street?
I have Ketsi on, Ketsi, you're on the phone with me here? No, that's fine. I don't want to give you the wrong information on that one, because I've seen it. We do have directions with cops sometimes. Can't go this way. There's a lot of construction in that area. There's been a lot of construction up and down
There are
there.
times of day.
96th Street is already
There are times
ridiculous.
We're
of
the
day
direction of.
when
20 years ago.
Traffic to and from there.
Traffic to and from there.
Intense. I don't know how you could do a.
Okay.
You can't make the U-turn.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna pull this in. I have a question actually for Andrew. which is, the layover, didn't that used to be west of Broadway and then we got interrupted because of
It
the
is west of
construction?
Broadway.
It
Oh,
is
It's
west of
between
Broadway.
Broadway and West End.
It's right in front of his house, this
Is
gentleman's house.
214?
214.
No, 214 is east of Broadway, isn't it?
Right.
The 214 is between Broadway and Amsterdam
Right.
Avenue on the
Yeah,
southeast
that's not
corner.
where they
But the
lay.
MTA layover is
It's
west of.
there. It is.
Okay.
It's on the West End block.
Yeah, there are buses laying over on 214 West 96th
Correct.
Street. There are 2 or 3 buses sitting there right all the time.
The bus stop was actually ahead of the layover zone, because I went out and looked at it twice.
Sir?
Yeah.
When you see those buses laying over in front of your building, are those MTA buses or the buses that this gentleman is talking about?
Currently, they are MTA buses, if I may,
Yeah.
check the
Yeah.
2, 3.
It could be that there's a disabled bus in the loading zone and so they came another block. Do you see that every day? In front of
Every day,
your buildings?
every day. Pictures from last week.
Particular time of day?
Everywhere from 11 to 5 p.m.
There's two different lines.
Morning and night.
All right, look, we're good. Okay, we're gonna pull this in.
I can look into that issue.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so, thank you both. And we're gonna go into a business session now.
Thank you very much.
You're gonna take the seat.
Andy, can
Um,
you pass the map around?
So,
Want to keep it?
No, just
I know-
passing it around.
I know
Give
it's
it back.
online,
Sure.
but can we see it again? Thank you.
okay, so it looks like,
It's north from 96.
Yes.
right, so you've heard this, the sides. Are there any questions or discussion around the table among the committee members?
Yeah. Call the question.
Yeah. Elizabeth, anything online? You're all set? Okay. So I would propose a resolution to approve. This has been there for a very long time and not every student who attends Columbia is from an urban environment and a shuttle bus might be of comfort to a parent sending their kid to the wilds of or West Side. That's not to say that I don't credit the concerns that have been raised around the table tonight. A lot of them, however, are not MTA related.
No.
They are very real, but they're not MTA
The one this
related.
gentleman brought up is very MTA related and not
Academy.
academy related, and I can
Yeah.
deal with that.
Yeah, and so maybe we can be of a little bit of help on the
Absolutely.
MTA side. And in terms of the incredible number of competing uses of our curb space, especially a relatively narrow one, like in front of 214, which
That's a busy street.
it's a busy street, even busier because of the familiar pizza people on the corner. So I would propose that we approve and then we do what we can to mitigate some of the
Existing.
collateral
Yeah.
effects. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? I see all. Aye. Elizabeth, do you have a vote? We just lost Elizabeth.
No.
Oh, that hand is yes. Somebody should be writing down the vote. So how many of us are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 1 is 10. Actually, I think I got it here. Okay. Okay. 10 to 0 to 0 to 0, right? That's everybody, abstentions, recusals? No, okay. All right, so, the minutes will reflect that we're gonna be moving on, sir.
Just a quick one. How, if we have issues with the service or whatnot, whom do we return? Who do we contact?
Contact the board, community board office. They'll get in touch with me and I'll get in touch with the operators of the M96 and M106.
And for any infractions or problems that they're doing,
Yeah.
your name, sir?
And this resolution will be presented at our full board meeting on October the 1st, I think, is it? Yeah, October 1st. So you're welcome to come and speak to the full board about the concerns that you've raised here. Okay, all right, we're gonna keep moving and if I remember my password, we would have the agenda.
I have it in front of me.
Okay, so we have our requests for secondary street renamings. And we have,
No, we got a two-way,
oh yeah, let's do that. Okay, is anybody here for that?
2642 Broadway. Is anybody here for that?
We don't have.
Or online or? Sometimes we have questions for them. If there's been any
Yeah.
change to the
If there's someone presenting online, they should raise their hand and I'll promote them.
black car, anybody in the audience
Yeah,
or online?
for the benefit of the committee members who haven't been around this block
Okay,
before.
someone just raised their hand. I'm promoting. John
Right,
Mazzy.
the re- Is that once upon a time, all the drivers had to go to the home base, I think, to pick up their checks. And so from time to time, there'd be ridiculous congestion outside the location. I don't think that's true anymore. But it's a vestige, just like us having to review CrossFits was a vestige of previous zoning. Okay, Jessie, we have somebody coming online.
Someone from
John Roberts that had their hand raised.
Chief Justice.
You'd think he'd have something better to do with October coming up.
You never know.
You never know. Okay.
Let's see. If not, we can move on to the next one and then I'll send off an email.
So are we gonna take the secondary street names in order of the agenda? Okay. Okay, so I see a lot of folks in the room and I'm guessing you're all here for one or the other of the secondary street names. So welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. We recognize that we probably spend all night.
I'm here.
Whoops.
I'm sorry. I'm here. John Robert Mazzia from Two Way Black Cars.
Okay. So, Andrew, you know this drill better
Sure,
than me.
thank you. Is there any change to the operation, Mr. Roberts?
None whatsoever.
Okay, and have you gotten any feedback from the community about your renewal application in any way? Did you post anything?
Yeah, I posted all the notices. I sent Jessie the pictures of the postings by email about a week ago.
Great.
No one has voiced any concerns. Our operation is small. We only have 10 affiliated vehicles. None of them actually come to the base. Everything is done electronically now, so there's no traffic impact or anything like that.
Great, thank you so much.
And Jessie, do we receive any impact or comments to the board office on this one?
No, none.
Okay. Okay, anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Nope.
We'll call the question.
Yeah.
Call the question
All
to
in
approve,
favor?
I assume.
Yes.
All right, motion and second to approve, all those in favor? Looks like 11, no, 10. 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and Elizabeth is 10. Okay. Denials, abstentions, recusals, I see none.
Everybody.
That's everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
So this is.
Thanks very much, Andrew. Good to see you all. Be well.
Okay, thanks. This goes to our full board meeting October 1.
Okay, I'll be there. Thank you.
Not required, but you're welcome.
Yeah, not required.
Okay. For our secondary street renamings, I have the guidelines for it. We can refer to them if we need to. We have limited time and there is this other event tonight that we're starting early for so that folks can perhaps take advantage of that. But we don't want to diminish your ability to tell the stories that are proposed to be honored tonight. So we do ask you to be concise and not repeat each other or yourselves and your fellow co-presenters. But we want to hear from you. I'm hoping we can spend about 15 or maybe 20 minutes on each one. But if you need a little more time, you just tell us that and we'll see. We've read the materials, so we appreciate you having submitted them in advance. We know there was a bit of work involved in getting the petitions signed and so forth, and so we thank you for that as well. So without further ado, let's call up the first one, which is the honoring of Ethel. Is it Deas or Deas? Deas. Thank you. Why don't you come on up? And the microphone is in this contraption. So if you will start the presentation, and if there are folks you want to call on to supplement or speak as well, please let us know.
Yeah, my name is Vincent Deas, and first of all, I want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to hear our presentation and our requests for secondary street naming for my mother, Ethel Deas, who passed away in 2021. She was a school crossing guard on 25th Street and Amsterdam Avenue for 33 years. And my brothers put a presentation together. As a matter of fact, she turned out to be more than a school crossing guard because things just happen. And you really don't understand why, but you just have to go along with it. She's really been a pillar and really impacted the community. We wanted to do something to honor her for that in the community. My brother Greg from Colorado has put together a presentation and he wants to present it to you.
Is he online with the
Yeah.
presentation?
Is he Gregory?
Gregory
Gregory
Deas.
Deas, right? I'm promoting him, but he has to accept.
Okay, and then he'll be able to share his screen, is that the idea? Okay, great.
Is he joining from Colorado?
Yes.
And the photographs of, is it your wife, your mother?
My mother.
Your mother. Photographs were terrific.
Oh, okay.
It's a really
You've
nice.
seen them.
Well, it's all in the drive
Okay,
that,
okay.
that the committee gets to see.
A question.
Yes, sir.
We get a confirmation that all of the applicants have met the requirements that we set up, like the number of signatures and all those.
I reviewed the petitions, they looked like they.
Everything
Yes,
has, okay.
and there were even some that were outside the district, so they were crossed off. So I'm
Okay.
confident that the right thing was done. If you wish.
Can you?
Actually declining to be promoted, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Unfortunately, Gregory, we can't hear your presentation if you're not.
Okay, so well, we did bring a backup. My daughter will be able to read it just in case, because I know sometimes we have issues with.
Bring her up.
Okay, come on up. Thank you.
Protect
Should I go there?
You can both sit here.
Yeah, thank you. Just in case we need both of you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi,
I'm just gonna get started.
okay.
Uh,
Oh,
my
give us your
name-
name.
my name is Chenille Deas.
Okay.
I'm the granddaughter of Ethel Deas. And I'm reading the statement on behalf of my uncle Gregory Deas. I would like to address the board regarding the naming of 105th Street.
Where is he?
I would like to address the board regarding the naming of a 105th Street and Amsterdam Avenue in Mrs. Ethel Yetta Deas's honor. While you may have never met her, I intend to take you on a quick journey and give you an insightful understanding of who she was and how she served and affected her community. While some of my words are the family's firsthand knowledge and experience, others are excerpts directly from her very own memoirs as she journalized a lot of her thoughts. For starters, Ms. Deas was an ordained minister and bishop, originally born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina, to Lillian and Joe Fickens. She married her childhood sweetheart, Julius Deas, and that sacred union lasted up until his passing in 2011. Julius served in the U.S. Army, with New York being one of the stops in his short career. He fell in love with the bright lights, and together they migrated here in 1958 to start a family, which would consist of 8 children. Proverbs 3 verse 6 says, "Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take." As you can already see, her path was predetermined by no choice of her own, as her canvas was ready for a fresh vision that would shape her legacy. Her only requirement was to design a meaningful life and how she wanted to be remembered. Settling within the New York environment, Ms. Deas took up housing in the Frederick Douglass Houses, which was originally comprised of 17 buildings between 100th and 104th Street. 868 was the last addition, added in 1965, and sits facing directly out onto Amsterdam's traffic. Ms. Deas took residence in that particular building and would remain there up until her passing in 2021. Her home and post were approximately 2 blocks from one another. The significance of Douglass Project is important, as 90% of youths growing up within that community were schooled at either PS 145 or PS 179. This entire area makes up the Douglass community. The Douglass community is a proud community, even opening a Facebook page to this day to keep everyone connected, as well as to pay homage and memorialize members for whom the bell tolled. While a lot of the individuals have since migrated to different boroughs or states, they're still well connected. From her very beginning, she already had a heavy presence throughout the community because she seemed to know everyone she came in contact with, always taking the time for both light or in-depth conversation with whoever wanted or needed to talk. When describing her personality, she stated, "I've always had such a great love for God and people, going above and beyond to help others. This was easy because she embraced everyone." After raising her family, she decided to take on employment and chose the public servant profession as a school crossing guard for the New York City Police Department's 24th precinct, allowing her to remain close to her community where she would have an impact while being a pillar. She would perform her duties and responsibilities for 36 years. She worked various posts before being permanently assigned to the 105th and Amsterdam Avenue post. This allowed her character to really flourish. This post required ensuring the safety of up to 450 children attending PS 145 annually, not counting summer school. PS 145 was vastly different than PS 179, which sat in a dead-end zone with very little to no traffic during school hours. PS 145, on the other hand, sat at the very corner of 105th and Amsterdam with a constant flow of heavy traffic. In fact, Amsterdam Avenue as a whole was considered one of the more dangerous streets in the neighborhood. Before the city ever considered lowering the speed zone, cars could be seen traveling at unimaginable speeds due to the inviting layout before it was redesigned with pedestrian safety enhancements and protected bike lanes. Studies showed approximately 82 injuries and 1 death involving pedestrians between 2012 and 2014 occurred between West 60th to 107th streets before enhancements. Why is this significant? Because Ms. Deas manned her post at 105th Street, which is 2 blocks away from the cutoff. Yet none of the injuries reported occurred at her post or affected any of the children whose safety she was responsible for. In fact, when she finally decided to retire after 36 years of public service, she considered that her greatest achievement. For 33 years, Ms. Deas manned her post at 105th in Amsterdam. Throughout the duration, it was common for people to stop and indulge in conversation when children were safely secured in classes. Many knew her as a God-fearing Christian, minister, and bishop, and often sought her out for spiritual guidance, prayer, or advice during difficult times. This was her gift and contribution. From her journal, she stated, "I was always that shoulder everyone leaned on, listening to problems and praying and seeking God for answers to help them. I knew at an early age I was called for the purpose of others." Faith in her beliefs and devotion to her community allowed open and honest feedback without judgment. Members of the community felt comfortable sharing personal family issues or concerns without reservations. This allowed her to offer sound advice or scriptures for healing in hopes of helping them to not only grow in their faith, but to overcome their temporary setback. When speaking of hope, she did what little she could to help grow the community. In one instance, she became a part of the Housing Tenant Patrol in 868, which kept the building safe while ensuring accountability for visitors and the community. In another instance, unafraid to challenge the norm, she took housing to court on several occasions, holding them accountable for substandard living conditions. She withheld months of rent and placed it in a savings account until their issues were resolved. The judge not only commended her for how she handled her concerns, but requested a list of all the issues, setting an additional court date to ensure her demands were met before releasing the funds withheld. Lastly, I discovered several handwritten letters in her journal, which she penned to President Joe Biden in hopes of improving the United States as a whole. As you can see, her vision was broad. While Ms. Deas never took credit for anything, attesting to her humility, she did take solace in the fact that throughout her tenure as a school crossing guard, she touched 3 generations within a lot of families residing throughout the community. It wasn't uncommon for her kids upon entering adulthood to revisit her post to introduce the next generation attending PS 145. Those actions spoke volumes for community trust. The introduction was a silent handshake agreement stating, "Please provide my child that same level of protection and security I felt under your leadership." In closing, 10 years before she left her post, which would have given her 23 years at the time, I remember thinking, my uncle remembers thinking, this woman deserves something way bigger than a mere pension for her untiring dedication as a public servant. Helping people was her passion. In her memoir, she writes, "I remember asking God, why me, Lord? Why me? That I have to deal with others' problems." The Lord responded from the book of Isaiah, chapter 58, verse 12. He said, "I've called you to be the repairer of the breach." Her faith allowed her to accept the responsibility in which she served the Lord with gladness. Not only did she serve the Lord, but she saw her post and community as equally worthy. She served to the point surgery was required in both knees because there was no longer any cartilage tissue to support ease of movement, resulting in significant pain.
You still meant to work.
Never once did she complain. She just accepted it. She never made it to surgery. The Lord decided her work was done and sent for her on the 30th of April, 2021. The importance of having the street name changed in her honor reverberated when members of the community approached me and my siblings requesting we consider doing whatever is necessary to secure and rename that post in her honor. The efforts to commemorate Ms. Deas are not necessarily family-driven, but community-driven. Family will love you regardless, but when a community takes the time to acknowledge and make their feelings known about how you affected their lives, that speaks volumes. As a military service member of 24 years, I truly understand what it means to honor a hero. We have heroes in all walks of life. Her impact and lifelong dedication to something bigger than herself is worthy of such an honor, making her a community hero. Her memoirs state, as an employee of the New York City Police Department working as a school crossing guard, leading children safely across the streets and ministering the love of God to the millions of people I came in contact with every day, gave me comfort in believing I answered his call. That post should immortalize her 33 years spent serving the public. She should forever be recognized as one of Douglas's extraordinary community heroes for her exemplary commitment to enriching the lives of so many others. Her lifelong resume warrants it. Please take this journey into consideration and honor her legacy in this fashion. She is, without a doubt, a prime designee for such an honor.
Thank you. Very much.
Thank you. She had time for all this other stuff while she was busy keeping people safe at 105th and Amsterdam. Wow.
She raised 8 children.
No small feat.
Wow.
Are there questions? I should say. And school crossing guards become very, very dear to families. There was one at my son's school, and then she ended up at his high school, and it was like old home week. So anyway, it's very moving. Thank you for sharing that with us. Are there questions around the table? Ken?
She was at 106th in Amsterdam or 105th?
105th in Amsterdam.
105th.
That's where the school is.
Yeah.
We're talking about secondary street naming on the southeast corner of 105 in Amsterdam.
And folks on this committee and on the Parks Committee may remember that there was an effort to redesign the playground that's incorporated with this school.
Yes.
And I believe that she was involved in the public outreach. Our colleagues and former colleagues, I had nothing to do with this, had terrific outreach to the entire community, and I believe she was there.
Makes sense.
It was quite something to.
Mark, she was. It's Elizabeth. She was definitely involved. Sorry.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard with respect to Mrs. Deas? And I see none. Do I hear a motion? Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah.
Elizabeth? Oh, are you voting or are you raising your hand to speak? Okay.
Just
All right.
gratitude that you can.
Ken has his hand up. Go ahead, Ken.
As some of you know, I typically abstain or vote against these. I predicted about 10 years ago that eventually every corner would have a secondary street name, and maybe we'll have to start having drop downs. As Mark jokingly suggested when I pointed this out to him. I mean, this is the Upper West Side. There are many deserving, thousands of deserving people. There are thousands of deserving public servants. This takes nothing away from your mom, hundreds, thousands of kids owe their lives to her potential. I just think we need to revise the criteria for the way that for how we grant these and the reasons we grant them. It's very difficult for us to say no when you have family members in the room. Absolutely impossible. And also we're supposed to revisit these every 10 years, and which we have not done. And I've been on the board 15 years, and we've never revisited a secondary street name to see whether it's still appropriate or, this Ms. Deas will probably get this secondary street name. But there may be other deserving people on that block, equally deserving, so that's why I'm gonna be abstaining from.
So Howard,
I'll vote in favor as well, but I just think we need to look at the standards again.
okay, yeah. We should adhere to the standards for this meeting,
Right,
for sure.
the standards in place now, and that's why I'm voting in favor, but I think we need to look at the standards here. Also, I was wondering, do we have any estimate of the cost attached to this? Is there?
Oh, no, but it is,
One additional sign.
yeah,
It's not a big.
God
deal.
only knows what that could cost in this city.
well, if you were to
Making so
contract
many
for
of
it,
them.
yeah.
Hey, it's Colleen from DOT. The cost is very minimal and it's just it's an additional sign that's under the existing street sign.
Okay, yep, and I'll also say that there were times in which we thought about plaques rather than street co-namings, and the plaques are very, very dear. So this is the cheaper alternative. I've got, Jami, did you want to be heard? I didn't.
I wanted to suggest that if Ken and Howard want to take another look at the rules and guidelines, that you should certainly feel free to bring a resolution to the board and some revised rules, but that it would not be fair to this family that made such a beautiful, resoundingly beautiful presentation to apply ex post facto some rules that we've not yet even considered to their application.
And
So let's hear.
So I think we should.
Thank you.
Call the question.
As to Ken's, one of Ken's comments, I think we have the ability to look at the 10-year issue that you brought up and that we all voted on a long time ago and see what signs are in those kinds of categories and look at them again.
And that's fair enough, but that's for a future,
Right,
yeah, that's not for tonight.
Yeah,
And then I'm gonna call on Councilmember Brewer.
Yes, we can bring that up, in new business and discuss it. I think one of the reasons we haven't reviewed, 10-year anniversaries is that there's been nothing controversial about it. And I think the cost is de minimis. And again, it's a secondary street naming, so there is virtually no confusion for a pedestrian or motorist. And by the way, with all respect back to my colleague, Ken, I wouldn't be great if we did have a name on every single street to know the history. I have something, as long as it doesn't confuse anyone in terms of traffic safety, it would be great to know everybody that contributed to our society on every block. So I would absolutely vote in favor of this, and the statement was very moving.
But of course, the reason a plaque is so much better, like we've asked for on schools and things, is that it gives you an explanation of how special this person is.
Well, we talked about having QR codes on these so that someone can look and see the history and the significance of the name.
Yeah,
which is
be awfully tall.
I see Councilmember Brewer on the Zoom. Councilmember, do you want to be heard on this?
Thank you. Two things. One is we just passed a bill that the Department of Records is implementing, which is that every sign is going to be on a city website and it will list the background of that person. So, and we're working on a QR code and we're working on the Google Maps to be the instigator for all that. So it would be a package. Not to say it's happened, but the beta of the website is up and running. I've been to a demonstration and we're working on the other two, just so you know, because I was very frustrated about the lack of who are these people. Just so you know, we are going back to 2001 is up to now is up.
Wow.
Previous to that, what we have to do is get the city council, because the city mayor's office, understandably, doesn't want to put up a bio that hasn't been sanctioned. So we're working to go back all the way as far as we can. I just want to let you know that's happening. The second thing is I'm just here. They're all fabulous. I know Linda Cooper was a dear friend. I know her family is here, 84th Amsterdam Avenue. She was a contributor, not just to her building and her block and to the system of voting at the Board of Elections, but a huge human being who helped zillions of people. Just so you know, I'm here for that family. And thank you very much. I look forward to working with you on the website, the QR code, and getting Google to include it in their Google Maps. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councilmember. And didn't Gil Taub from the Bloomingdale History Group also do some work on this?
Yeah, Gil is
I know that's
helping.
not sanctioned by the council.
No, Gil, I've spoken to Gil. We're going to get together to give the pre-2001 because he has the list. And then we're going to go
Yeah.
from there to get them sanctioned by the council. We're going to introduce resolutions. Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. All right. Unless there's anybody else wants to be heard on this, I say there's a motion to approve.
I'd like
so let's
to
take-
quickly say something. Can you hear
Who's
me?
that?
Peter Arnson.
Hey, Peter, by all means.
This crossing guard was a first line of information. We would regularly talk, and she could give me information about what was going on in the school and outside of the school, and also just about the conditions there. There often were disputes between students that she would be aware of and be able to alert me to, but also to try and deal with some of the issues. So this was a person that was very helpful and in many ways should be seen. I mean, the crossing guards in general should be seen as an extension of the police and a source of information. So I fully support her and her family and this effort. Though I will say that if you decided against it, I'd be glad to put a plaque in the one of the tree beds as a tree steward. So
Well, it turns out that requires a Parks Department permit, so let's go with this.
Committee.
Committee, exactly.
That's right.
Parks has been
okay.
very forgiving.
Thanks, Peter. Peter Arnson, by the way, was the former executive director and founding executive director of the Columbus Amsterdam bid from 106 to 100, well, actually from 96 to 110, basically. So he was a familiar face around this table for many years. All right. My third time trying to take a vote. Here we go. All those in favor? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 10. To 0 to 0. Abstentions and repeals. Mother, grandmother to our attention.
First will be our full board meeting where.
I decided.
Right, and then we communicate this, in this case, it's 105th Street, so it would be communicated to Councilmember Sean Abreu, because that's his district. And the ones that are south of 96th Street will be communicated to Councilmember Brewer, from whom we just heard. And then it's the city council that makes the decision. So our resolution will be one advisory in support. And that's true for everybody, okay? All right, thank you very much. The next one.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Linda Cooper is next. Am I correct about that?
Oscar Abolafia.
Oh, Oscar is next? It's funny because they're in a different order on the website than they are on the thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go in the order of the agenda. Oscar, and you're gonna help me with the pronunciation.
Abolafia.
Abolafia, okay. Who's here for Oscar Abolafia?
So I'm
Bill
here. I apologize. I'm not able to be there in person. I had a little accident, was in the ER this weekend. So I'm here on Zoom and my husband is listening in.
Okay, great. You're gonna need to speak a little bit louder.
Okay,
or a
sure.
little
I'll
bit
speak
closer to
louder.
your
I'll get
microphone.
closer. Okay, can you hear me
There
okay
you go.
now? Okay, thank you so
That's
much.
much better, thank you.
Okay.
So please go ahead and tell us about Oscar.
Okay, so my name is Cayle White. I'm a resident of 215 West 98th Street, the Grammont. And I want to thank the committee for taking the time to review this application and for this hearing. And also for considering adding the name Oscar Abolafia Way to West 98th Street between Broadway and Amsterdam. And I also want to thank Jessie, who has been phenomenal. Oscar Abolafia was a resident of the Grammont for over 40 years. During that time, he was known to everyone in the building and the neighborhood as the unofficial mayor of the Upper West Side. He made it his business to meet and get to know everyone who came across his path or past his folding chair on the sidewalk. He was genuinely interested in finding out everything about each person and their personal story. He truly cared about everyone: homeless people, shopkeepers, workers, community residents, and especially the kids. Unfortunately, Oscar and his wife were not able to have children, but they adopted all of the children in our building and all of the children in the neighborhood. Generations of children cherished the toys that Oscar would surprise them with after school or when they got a good grade on a test. He was always concerned about them and ready with words of encouragement, advice, or warnings about why they should behave and listen to their parents. Our family was adopted by Oscar, and we can't begin to tell you how grateful we are to have had him in our lives and how much he impacted the lives of our children and everyone in our neighborhood. We feel his presence every time we walk out in and out the front door. He would always be there to greet you, coming in or out. Sorry. He would always be ready to interrogate you about the latest news. The neighborhood is simply not the same without him. In fact, since his passing and after posting the notices about the street naming, dozens of people contacted us to ask what happened to him and to share their sadness and fond memories. Not one person objected to the idea of adding his name to our street. On the contrary, the idea was embraced and celebrated by everyone who learned about it. Random visitors still come into our lobby and ask our doorman, "Where's Oscar?" Oscar's most recent book, a bestseller named Icons by Oscar, because Oscar wasn't just the man who sat on West 98th Street, he was actually a world-renowned celebrity photographer. And he jet-setted across the world with the who's who of 20th century pop culture for over 50 years. His subjects included Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack, Twiggy, Sophia Loren, Elizabeth Taylor, Elvis Presley, and the list goes on and on. He was a photo editor at several magazines, including Time Life, Newsweek, People, and Hello, and he was specifically requested as the photographer for monarchs, public figures, and politicians for his portraits. When he was abroad, he would be chased by fans seeking autographs, and he was a favorite guest on many late-night talk shows, but he liked to keep a low profile, and he was just known to most of us as the guy who sat on West 98th Street. His most recent book, a bestseller named Icons by Oscar, came out shortly before his passing in 2020, and it became an international bestseller. Icons by Oscar 2.0 is being released this holiday, just in time for the holiday season. And actually, the title should have been reversed to describe him. Oscar himself was an icon. We, as the residents of this neighborhood and confirmed by the people who signed the petition, believe that adding his name to West 98th Street would be the most fitting tribute and really the least we can do. And it would mean so much to his widow, Yoki, who is very much in favor of this. So we hope you will approve this application and add Oscar Abolafia Way to our little corner. And so I'm just going to present a little bit about Oscar and his life, in case you probably knew him by face, but you probably didn't know him by name, and you probably are very familiar with his photographs. So I'm just going to share. Okay. There we go. Okay. Oh, and start from the end. Okay, so this is the iconic Oscar Abolafia, and here he is with one of his cameras, and I'm here presenting to you about his life. So Oscar Abolafia was the son of Sephardi immigrant parents living on the wrong side of Broadway, where his father sold flowers. They had a small flower shop, and he instilled life lessons with his mother hanging onto old values and traditions. Growing up in a fifth-floor walk-up apartment on 102nd Street between Broadway and Amsterdam Avenue with artistic, talented siblings, all struggling to make their mark, made for a colorful and challenging environment. At a young age, he wanted to get away from this sometimes stifling home life, to see more and experience more of the city he was born in and beyond. He found through a newspaper ad a sympathetic ear in industrial photographer William Van de Vert, one of the founders of Magnum Photos, who took him on as an assistant, and showed him the ropes about technical and lighting skills. He traveled all over the United States, but when it came time to fly on his own, there was not enough money for all the equipment. He set up a small fashion studio on West 46th Street, hung out with the Andy Warhol group, befriended Ultraviolet, and he made an iconic poster of her with the American flag, and Viva to do a fabulous photo shoot. But still, money was too tight, and he couldn't pursue his dream any longer. With debts paid and one camera left, knowing the city streets and its secrets, the vibe and its ability to always renew itself, he recalled what Henri Cartier-Bresson said, I'm not looking for the perfect moment because there are no perfect moments, but what interested him was looking for something and seeing it happen. And happening it was. In 1965, the start of Free Love and Flower Power, the Beatles arriving in town for their appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show and their concert at Chase Stadium. And that was the year to start making a mark. So this was while he was alive. Now, after 50 years, looking back on his life, his work, and his city, he recalls the triumphs, successes, and failures. He has achieved most of his goals, and like the city he loves, he keeps kicking and clicking. When he started to slow down, he would spend even more time on his beloved 98th Street, always sitting in his beach chair, listening to his small radio, and greeting and listening to his neighbors. No matter if he knew them, doctors, lawyers, beggars, children, you name it, he was interested and remembered. He knew shopkeepers, workers at the supermarket, the stationery store, and he was always giving insight and advice when asked. Oscar traveled all over the world, stayed in many world-renowned hotels and homes, but when asked where he wanted to be most, his answer was always, without hesitation, 98th Street and Broadway. It was where his heart was. His chair and his little radio. Sorry. So these are actually cover photos from Oscar's book, Icon by Oscar. Take a drink. So this is actually the original cover that was Twiggy, and it's a full-size coffee table book. I have it over here, and this is the second portrait that was featured on the front. That's a picture of Jack Nicholson, I'm sure you're familiar with. And these are all, I'm sure, iconic photos that you are familiar with. You probably just didn't know who Oscar was and who took the photos. So here we have Elizabeth Taylor and a young Steven Spielberg. This is an amazing photo of Diana Ross, and Oscar was always the one pushing them to be themselves because he wanted to capture the essence of the person. And one thing that was unique about Oscar was it was never about ego. He wasn't seeking fame and fortune. He was just out there to practice his craft and make the most beautiful photographs and make these people look their best. And these are lessons he shared with everybody, especially my children. And just very blessed. So this is Michael Jackson. I don't know if you can see that's Jacqueline Onassis and Frank Sinatra. There's, I think you recognize these people. There's John Lennon and Andy Warhol and actually Bianca Jagger. So he hung out a lot at Studio 54.
Some of us remember.
Yeah, maybe a few of these people. Yeah, here's the famous Joe Frazier versus Ali fight at Madison Square Garden. Like any pivotal moment in history, Oscar seemed to find himself there, and he has a photo, and it just captures something that nobody else was able to see. And here's Dolly, which is a really funny photo. Yeah, and here he is. So there were many, many articles written about him in the New York Times, in Vanity Fair, in different publications. And here he is, and talking about the Abolafia files. And Oscar took thousands of photos, not just of celebrities, but just of ordinary people on the street. In his later years, he would go a lot to Brooklyn to take pictures of the former Russian war veterans and of beach scenes, and they were really incredibly beautiful. And he was just a generous person all around. So here we have, there was a whole photo spread about him before he passed, in Vanity Fair and in the New York Times. And here he actually used to sit so frequently outside our building that Google Maps caught him. He's actually on a number of Google Maps photos. Here he is sitting in his chair. And everybody, Oscar knew everybody, and everybody knew Oscar, and he wasn't prying and he wasn't invasive, but he really cared about people. And so that's
okay.
all I have to say. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Did you want to be heard, Ken? I think there's somebody else that wanted to be heard.
There's someone I'm going to start off.
Okay.
Joanne,
we've heard quite a bit.
I just promoted.
Okay, go ahead. Please identify yourself. Yeah, if you could stop sharing your screen so we can see the other gentleman.
Let me see if I can do that. Okay.
There you go.
I did it.
Okay. All right, I'm back.
Thank you, Jessie.
All right. Okay. Let me get out.
That's our colleague. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
And who else is? Hello, please go ahead.
Okay. Hi, my name is Joanne Halev, and I have been a resident as well at 215 West 98th Street for over 28 years. I am speaking today on behalf of a group of residents of our building who are adamantly against the idea of naming our street in honor of Oscar Abolafia. We strongly believe that he is unworthy of such an honor. There are 3 reasons for our objection to this idea. Oscar Abolafia often made mean and unsolicited comments to people who lived in the building about their appearance. He particularly chose to do so with regard to teenagers and young women. Oscar, from my point of view and many others, was a nosy, mean-spirited busybody and a gossip who enjoyed stirring things up amongst various individuals who lived in the building. He took pleasure in creating combative situations between residents. Oscar was often rude and borderline abusive to members of the staff of our building. And of course, he was in the lobby of the building all the time, as well as outside in nicer weather. To put this in perspective, yes, please understand that Oscar spent much of his day either sitting in our lobby in a lawn chair or in a lawn chair in front of the building, watching people's comings and goings. He liked to engage people, often in a negative and invasive way. He very often asked me where I was going or what I was doing and would comment on these plans. He was extremely rude or hurtful to my daughter, and hopefully you will hear testimony from her about this. We have a recording of her speaking about her experiences with him. It happened once that I was having my client and my team at work for a large holiday gathering. So I arranged flowers for the building's beautiful lobby, something which I do professionally. Another woman came into the lobby and objected, as she had done flowers sometimes in the past. She wanted to know who had done this. Oscar was, of course, sitting in the lobby and told her it was me. She then called me during my holiday party and was verbally abusive, stating that Oscar told her what I had done. She wanted to know who gave me the right. This continued for many months, causing a lot of bad feelings with people taking sides in these flower wars. Oscar seemed to enjoy this process. Another person called Oscar rude, crude, and obnoxious. This is another person who lives in our building who did not feel comfortable coming forward, but did not sign the petition, as I did not as well. He shared that he was coming into the lobby with his elderly father. Oscar, that day, saw them enter and said to the older man, "You seem much nicer than your no-good son." Another woman shared that Oscar often directed demeaning religious slurs at her. He said he liked to taunt her. She said he liked to taunt her by saying, "You're such a Jewish mother. Why do you have to send your fancy daughter to some Jewish sleepover camp? She's such a spoiled little bitch." For my part, here's what it comes down to. I loathe the idea that this man be honored in this way, and I shudder at the idea that I would have to see his name displayed daily as I leave and return to my building. And now my neighbor, Dennis Andreopoulos, will share my objections, as well as other people who knew Mr. Abolafia, as well as the recording from my daughter about what he said to her. I can sign off now.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if you
Well,
saw
am I
me.
Am I able to respond to this at all?
Give me a minute. All right, who else wants to be heard?
Right here.
Is there somebody else online that wants to be heard? I thought there was.
She's referring to, sorry, her
A
daughter.
person who's present there today.
Okay, so go ahead, sir, and then is there somebody else here who wants to be heard? I don't see, so I guess you'll get that cleanup. Okay.
My name is Dennis Andreopoulos. I've lived in the Vermont for 45 years. My profession is in event management for museums, galleries, and private clients, 2 of whom serve as presidents of the board of 2 of our major New York City museums. Oscar learned about my work and began to push and pester me to present his portfolio to my clients. I suggested he talk to Elizabeth Sussman, head curator of photography at the Whitney Museum, who ended up not interested in his work. He told me he already seen her and that she does not know what she's talking about. After more pestering, I presented his portfolio to an East Side gallery owner of one of my private clients, who said there was no market for this kind of work. Oscar soon became belligerent to me. I'm an openly gay man, and Oscar referred to me in the lobby in front of our door staff in a derogatory homophobic slur. I'm gonna read something just briefly from another time.
Okay.
Okay, this is anonymous. I have lived at two.
You know what?
Yeah, anonymous.
Anonymous doesn't work for us. We all stand behind what we're saying. So move on to your next point.
Then should I play the daughter's voice?
How long is it?
2 minutes and 36 seconds.
All right, we can hear that. Play it near the.
You could.
Yeah.
It's a hand.
Yeah, over there, so you go. Just give me a second. Not working.
It never works when you want it to.
Exactly. It's not, I don't think it's, I downloaded it, but it's not coming here. I think basically, I don't know, also, I'm sorry that this is brought up this way, and also, the person who presented Oscar in this, who started this, never asked anyone in the building how we felt about it. There's a building link, so no one was asked about it. And Joni, who was just on, had emailed this lady months ago to talk about it, and we never got a response.
Okay.
I'm wondering if we know enough to vote.
Well, thank you. I'm gonna go right.
I'm wondering. I'm not saying we do. I'm just wondering.
I'm, all right, so thank you very much.
Okay.
Why don't you go take your seat? And my next point is.
There's one hand up.
Okay, a question for this gentleman?
Yeah.
Okay, go right ahead.
So you and the woman who spoke just before.
Ms. Holland?
Joni, suggest that there are a number of neighbors who feel as you do.
Yes.
Can you quantify how many,
Um,
more or less?
there's at least 8 of us, I would say 8 total, and some people just don't want to get involved.
I understand.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get a
There
sense.
were
of
8
your
people
vote.
who had similar objections to the themes we're talking about.
Okay, thank you very
Yeah.
much, sir.
Okay, and Jack,
I thought that Joni is at the lake.
Olive, Ms. Olive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that she
Hey,
started out by saying that she was representing 28.
She said, I don't remember the number, but you're
No,
right. She
no.
said there she's representing.
Oh,
All
I'm
right, so
sorry.
I'm sorry, hang on one second, everybody. So I have a question for Jessie. Jessie,
Yes,
the city council votes on these things twice a year. Usually it's in December and June. Do we happen to know if that's the schedule this year?
as far as I know, what I was told, it would be up sometime either November or December. But usually what they do is they ask us beforehand.
Yeah.
So when they're ready to go, I see Gail just came out.
Yeah.
November,
I didn't know you still
November,
with us.
November.
November? Okay, so we can consider this at the October Transportation Committee and November full board and still be timely for this. I am not expressing a view as to where this should land. But these are serious allegations that I think it behooves our committee to consider. I'm not sure how, especially since I'm going to be out of the country during our October meeting. So Andrew, lucky you, you're going to have this on your docket. I see Ken's hand, but so anyway, that's my first thought on this. Ken, I'll give you the floor.
I just don't think it's up to us to adjudicate something like this. It's not part of our criteria, but it ought to be, that if there are any serious objections from members of the community in that area or that building, that's it. You know, it's out the window.
That's it. We're still operating under the old rules. Maybe that is an appropriate rule. But I share the concern that because even though we want to review them every 10 years, DOT isn't gonna let us do that, so it's there for as long as it's gonna be there. So anyway, I have a thought, but I'm gonna hear Howard and then Jay, and then
We
we'll.
can still vote on the merits. That's
Well,
that's consistent with current rules.
Sorry, I just want to raise my hand. I just want to respond to what Ms. Halef said. I'm actually really sad that she chose to confront me in this forum. I have a good relationship with her. I literally see her almost every day in the elevator. She could have approached me at any point. I have been collecting these signatures for over a year. It was well publicized in our building. She had ample opportunities to approach me. And as a matter of fact, when we sent out the initial email, she was very enthusiastic about it. And she approached me in the elevator and said, I have a great idea for you about how I can help with this Oscar project. So I find that really insulting. And
All
there
right, so
are
I'm
overwhelmingly
sorry, I'm
more
gonna cut
people
you, I'm
in
sorry,
favor
I'm
of
gonna
this.
cut you off there. Because we're not gonna have a conversation back and forth among folks about. I personally would have liked a heads up going into tonight's meeting, knowing that there was opposition. I believe there is some concerns on another application, and they were kind enough to let us know that that's coming. And we'll do whatever we do about that, but that's.
And
something.
also, as
So
far
I
as
don't want to have a
Oscar,
back
yeah.
and forth.
I know,
Please,
I
ma'am.
just want to say on the record, though, as far as Oscar being an anti-Semite, and Oscar was Jewish, I am Jewish, a majority of our people in our building are Jewish. He came to my kids' bar mitzvahs, he came to our synagogue, he was
Okay,
absolutely a
thank you.
very.
Thank you. Jay.
Well, I agree with Ken. I think that we can be in a position to forward this on with no recommendation and let the city council, who have resources, if they're gonna vote on it, they have the final word. Obviously, we don't. I personally don't yet want to have to decide which of these groups of people are accurate. I don't think we have the wherewithal to do so. So I would suggest that whether we have to vote on it or not, that we forward this on to the council, recommend that the board forward it on to the council without a recommendation.
Okay, that could be a motion, and what we could do is prepare a report as opposed to a resolution.
You can summarize.
That
what has occurred.
provides the council member with the materials with which we've been provided, including the recording of this meeting, because we don't have documents from Ms. Holland. All right.
Is that a motion? Were you
So-
making a
Well,
motion?
okay,
I think it should be, okay, I think it should be a decision of the committee.
We forward this without a
Yeah.
we forward it.
No
You
recommendation.
would entertain this motion.
So let's have some more discussion about where we go from here.
I just want to say that, I agree that we're not here to adjudicate anything. On the other hand, we have over 100 signatures, people that affirmatively supported this renaming. We have a gentleman in person. I appreciate you being here. We have someone who is not on camera. And I don't have, when I think about, proof, evidence, I don't have any reason to doubt what anyone said. But I can say the applicant of the evidence that was supported, for this applicant is very much there. The work, publications, the signatures. So right now, I'm leaning more toward the applicant. But I am deeply concerned about the allegations, and I have to call them allegations because I don't know that we have any proof. There were police reports. If there was something that was really substantial, I hear. And I have no reason to doubt any members of the public, but it's just, I'm tipping the scales here. So I like the idea of putting this off. And not making a final decision tonight.
Okay, so Carey?
Oh, I had two thoughts. The first, I know you had a suggestion in mind and I was curious what that was, but I was thinking that our other option, since much of this discussion is coming up tonight, and I don't know that we are necessarily in a position to assess what the community's sense is. And since there does appear to be time, we can always table the motion, provide an opportunity for people to submit or supplement the record however they see fit, and then take the matter up at our next meeting and be in a perhaps better position to understand whether or not it should be a recommendation or not.
Thanks. That's kind of where I was going, but let's see how this all shapes out. Howard.
I
please.
just want to say, we're not in a position to assess the allegations, but we're really not in a position to assess anything, even what people are saying about these seemingly worthy people. I think secondary street naming should be for people who are unequivocally deserving, like our first applicant. And if there's an issue, there's not an automatic right to a secondary street naming unless there's some problem with you. So I'm prepared to support a resolution saying no recommendation.
To say no recommendation,
Meaning.
or to deny.
James, your proposal, yes.
Okay,
No recommendations.
Andrew Reggie's
exactly.
up.
Yeah.
Oh, Andrew Rigie,
Andrew, go ahead.
Thanks. I'm just going to reiterate what I've said in the past. I think maybe once I voted on these, but I always abstain. Just another example of why these are troublesome. People are human. They're flawed. They have different opinions. I don't know why we as a community board even need to take any position on any of these things. People should be recognized in different ways, but secondary street namings to me always just seem a peculiar practice and very imperfect and something that always will come back to haunt us in different ways, no matter how wonderful any one individual is. So that's it.
Okay. All right. So there's a motion on the table to, in effect, render a report that says we've heard this, we've heard that. We are not in a position to determine the truth.
Take a position on.
Right, and therefore we provide the council member with this information and the names and addresses of people that have appeared so that they can follow up as they will. And leave it at that. Now, if we do it as a resolution, then we have to vote on it at full board. And that strikes me as being appropriate. I was about to say maybe not, but it also gives the folks around who appeared tonight another opportunity to come testify, although you'll be limited as to time.
Question, can we just take no action? Just move on to the next?
We can. I hate the idea
tabling it
of
with-
being completely silent on it, because then
Okay.
it seems as though we don't care, and we do
Okay.
care.
If we do
we
what you're recommending
Mhm.
and move it forward without taking a position, that gives at least two to 3 weeks until full board for those to submit the testimony that they would like on the record.
That's a good point.
Yep, although I'm gonna say it gives them 1 week because we need to prepare the report that goes before full board. Ordinarily that would be we'd do that, in the next couple of days. So I'm prepared to support Jay's idea. And I think there is a second.
Yep.
Is there any other discussion on this,
Nope.
Elizabeth, Andrew, before we, no? All right, so those in favor of the not tabling, no decision, report, I'll call it. Those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and me is 6, Elizabeth is 7. Okay, hands down. Those opposed to that idea, that motion? I see none. Those abstaining, 1, 2, and Andrew Rigie is 3.
There are 3 here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Four.
So that's 4 altogether. That's right, because now we're 11. Thanks. And anybody not eligible? No, of course not. Okay. All right, that's where we are. Thank you all, both for and against, for bringing this to our attention. It is the kind of thing that we want to make sure we get right, and this is our best shot at getting it right. Thank you all. No, I think we're done.
It's the process.
You can talk, we can talk after the fact, but it's now 7:30 and we've got 2 more to go. And so I thank you for that. Are we now at Miss
Linda Cooper.
Linda Cooper, who I think I've actually met?
She was, the good neighbor with you last,
2 years ago.
2022.
That's indeed.
Hello.
Okay, so are you gonna be the presenter?
Yeah.
Okay, is there anybody online that you need?
I actually have a couple of people here that are going to speak.
Hi, we have a series actually, okay. Okay. So you're gonna promise us the same kind of controversy that we just had? Okay, all right, please tell us your name and then please take a few minutes to tell us about Ms. Cooper.
My name is Teniqua Cooper. I grew up at 150 West 84th Street and I live at 126 West 83rd Street, so far away. I stand before you today with deep gratitude and heartfelt emotion as I express my wholehearted support for the proposal to name a street in honor of my late mother, Linda Carter Cooper. My mother's life was a testament to service, resilience, and unwavering commitment to the Upper West Side community, which she called home for over 40 years.
For over 30 years, my mother stood as a pillar of integrity in her role as a community coordinator at the Board of Elections. With each election, she worked tirelessly to uphold the core principles of democracy, fairness, transparency, and accountability. She believed in empowering the people, ensuring that every vote counted, and that our community voice was heard. Her dedication to justice earned her the respect of everyone who had the privilege of working alongside her, and of those whose lives were touched by her efforts. My mother's influence extended far beyond her work at the Board of Elections. As a devoted member of the Democratic Club, she worked tirelessly for equality, inclusivity, and justice, values she championed for in not just words, but through her actions. She gave a voice to the silence, empowering individuals to stand up for their rights and lifting families across our neighborhood. One of her most impactful roles was a tenant organizer. She fearlessly confronted slumlords and illegal evictions, standing up for those in unsafe living conditions. With courage and determination, she educated tenants about their rights, ensuring that they had a stable roof over their head. For countless families, her efforts meant security, safety, and the ability to call a place home. Her service didn't stop there. In every aspect of her life, my mother sought to help others. As a dedicated member of St. Matthew's and St. Timothy's Church, she poured her heart into programs that supported those in need, from the soup kitchen to the Angels basketball program, which provided mentorship and a sense of community for our local youth. Her faith guided her action, and her compassion knew no bounds. She often adopted seniors in the community, helping those without family maintain their apartments, attend their appointments, access their entitlements, and live out the rest of their lives with dignity and respect. Education was another cause my mother held dear. She believed that every child deserved a quality education and equal opportunity regardless of their background. Through her tireless advocacy, yes, I'm lost in that.
No problem.
Okay, through her tireless advocacy, she helped families navigate the complexities of the school system and fought for fair treatment for every student. In 2022, my mother was honored with the Good Neighbor Award by God at Riverside Community Center, a reflection of her lifelong dedication to serving others. Her legacy of compassion, advocacy, and service continues to inspire, and I believe naming a street in her honor is a fitting tribute. By naming a street after her, we will not only commemorate a life dedicated to service, but also inspire future generations to follow her path, to lead with empathy, stand for justice, and help build a better, stronger community for all. Thank you all for your time and consideration. I fully support this effort to honor my mother, Linda Carter Cooper, in this meaningful and lasting way, and I thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you so much. Are there others in the cheering section that want to be heard? It is not required. I think we heard quite a bit just now, and it was concise, and that's always a good thing. But I don't want to cut anybody off if they wish to be heard. All right, sir, come on up. I'll note in the meantime that the letters of support came from virtually every faith in the or ministers in every faith in the immediate vicinity. That says something, doesn't it? That says something. Yeah. Please give us your name and then tell us what you'd like us to know.
Yes, my name is Ken Gorsuch.
You're one of the letter writers. Go right ahead.
I am, and basically, I'm just going to read the letter. If that's repetitive, I'll draw back. I was the minister for 40 years of the West End Collegiate Church in this neighborhood, and was the 44th minister in the line from 1628 to the present of ministers in that system. The testimony tonight from all of you is that what makes a city is a series of neighborhoods, blocks, and block associations. And the question, what makes a neighborhood is probably better phrased, who makes a neighborhood, and that's the testimony I wish to make briefly. The best way to restrain a preacher is to give him a text. So that's my gift to you. Linda Cooper was a matriarch of a family and a sister and a mother of citizens of 84th Street. She knit together generations, churches, schools, government, and youth programs. And when it came time to mark her passing from this neighborhood, the church, where I am a worshiper now, and of which she was a member, was overflowing. And then some. I have never seen an outpouring like that in this neighborhood. People were standing in the aisles They were out in the street. They were waiting in adjacent halls to get in to pay tribute to this woman. She tended to deal with us one at a time. It's spirit which unites the people, and Linda was a beautiful spirit embodied in a beautiful person. She was one of the most passionate persons I have ever known. When she had withering anger, we were thunderstruck by her speech. When she smiled, it was like the morning sun. When she felt injustice, she spoke up loudly. When she saw someone in need, she was so compassionate and tender. It was moving, and I watched her this way for years. When she lectured young people who were in our care, she challenged them with an intensity I've never seen, to behave properly, to thank those who helped them, to be respectful of parents and shopkeepers and neighbors. And when her passion turned to anger, we who were closest to her knew somehow that she nevertheless loved us. She embraced young people and they hugged her back, and she dressed them with a withering power. Linda was a teacher and a friend and a repository of neighborhood news. So when we engaged her on the stoop of her building, we noticed that people passing by all would greet and they would say hello. They'd offer a tidbit of news and receive some news back. And it was just that kind of presence that knit that neighborhood together. She knew that she was a child of God and that we were too. She and her husband, Tony, served families of 3 generations in this neighborhood. Where do we see that kind of love more than on West 84th Street? We know that the city is a city of neighborhoods. To look up and see a street sign with Linda Cooper's name, a few people might ask, well, who is that? And be blessed by an answer from another person. Most of us, though, will know. We have been sustained as a community by Linda and her family. We are blessed. And it's a good thing to be reminded of how blessed we have been, so that we might do something to sustain that kind of spirit in the neighborhood. Remembering is a sacred activity, and it's a blessing. It would be wonderful, really, for Linda Cooper's way among us to be sustained and encouraged by a sign above us. And I'm a pedestrian. I walk through the streets and I notice these names who are present among us. We will look up and see Linda Cooper's way. Thank you for considering this.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I think we've heard what we're going to hear. So thank you for those presentations. I guess we'll open it to talk around the table. Jay?
I just wanted to say that I can't think of a more appropriate time to honor somebody who works at the Board of Elections.
Oh dear, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm so deeply moved by the stories, as time goes on, and I'm just gonna say literally people live and die, and the minister saying that remembering it is sacred act, it really is moving to me, and it just makes me think I want to live my life to be worthy of a secondary street naming. I don't know if that's true yet, not nearly. So it's just very deeply moving. That's all I wanted to say.
And if I could just jump in, I'm particularly, with no denigration to other worthy candidates, when we're honoring people who are supporting us in unseen, unheralded ways, it strikes me as particularly important and appropriate to acknowledge them, because they won't be acknowledged in other ways. That when you devote your life to community in the smallest, most concentrated form, that is often an unsung heroism. And so this strikes me as right up the alley of what I think these guidelines are intended to find for us.
I agree.
So with that, I guess, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. And a second? No, sorry, it's only the board members. But the resolution will know that there are 24 of you, so, okay. Okay, so, discussion, we're ready to vote, yes?
Ready to vote.
Ready to vote? All those in favor? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Elizabeth is 9. Did I miss? Oh, Jamie's not here, so 9. So I've got 9. And that leaves Andrew, I believe. Andrew, you would abstain?
Abstain.
Abstain, okay, 9-0-1-0, that's everybody, right?
Yes.
And there are no non-committee board members, I didn't call for that before. Okay, so that will be on our agenda for the full board meeting on Tuesday, October 1st.
Yes.
You're welcome to come then. It'll go with a unanimous nearly unanimous recommendation of this committee. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you all for coming. And that leaves us with one, which is Leora Amira, in honor of, and I'm probably gonna butcher this, but Noon Han, is that it?
No.
Nan Han. Not, thank you, okay, I'll get it right one of these days. So are you Ms. Amira?
I'm Leora Amira. Good evening.
Well, let's just wait 1 second, if your folks are gonna, if you're gonna take your leave, you're welcome to stay, of course. But if not, let's give the floor to the next person.
I've been living on the Upper West.
You're gonna need to speak up.
I've been living on the Upper West Side for 45 years. And first, I would like to thank the committee for considering our proposal. And I want to thank you, Jessie, for your effective guidance and support and care.
Yaruss. Can you
Yeah.
speak louder?
Yeah.
No, that doesn't go for motion.
Well,
Clearing the room, which should quiet down in a second.
Yeah.
I also want to ask if people at home can hear you,
Elizabeth, can you hear our speaker? You can, okay, thank you.
Good.
So actually, I would like to ask kindly the committee to recognize Christina Orsatti, who is going to share our presentation on Zoom about Thich Nhat Hanh and his connection to West 109th Street.
Very good. I should have mentioned, by the way, Linda Cooper, it was 84th Street in Amsterdam, but I'm not sure which corner. We should have.
It says northeast.
The northeast.
There we go.
It says no.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
works.
northeast,
Okay,
yep.
good. Thank you. That's very helpful. Okay, so and here it is. Thank you. Please go ahead.
There we go.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. I will try to speak very loudly. And I know that time is limited, so I will be going very quickly. Co-chairs and members of the Transportation Committee of Manhattan Community Board 7, thank you for the opportunity to present before you today the proposal to co-name the southwest corner of 109th Street and Broadway in honor of Thich Nhat Hanh.
Whoops, we just lost you. I don't know if you're muted.
Nope. Did you?
If you can hear us, we're no longer hearing you.
Okay, perhaps you can hear me now?
Yes.
That's much better. Okay.
Okay, so in this presentation, we will answer key questions, including who is Thich Nhat Hanh, also known as Thai, which means teacher, why co-name 109th Street between Broadway and Riverside Drive Thich Nhat Hanh Way, specifically on the southwest corner of 109th Street and Broadway, and explain how the proposal meets the critically important relevant criteria for secondary street naming in CB7. Sorry. Okay, sorry, it's the buttons. So Thich Nhat Hanh was described by the New York Times as one of the world's most influential Zen masters, spreading messages of mindfulness, compassion, and nonviolence. He was nominated by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. for the Nobel Peace Prize in 1967, and he is the only person that Martin Luther King ever nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. To understand the local and global significance of Thich Nhat Hanh's work, it is important to know that in addition to being a peace activist, he was a prolific author of over 100 books, a poet, a teacher, and an artist. One of his key insights was to understand the need to first create peace within oneself in order for peace to be possible in families, in communities, in countries, and among nations. He is known as the father of mindfulness for helping people at individual and societal levels, including in schools, social service agencies, prison and law enforcement settings, develop tools to cope with anger, distress, alienation, and trauma so that negative cycles are not perpetuated within and among people. This is the meaning of one of his calligraphies, which you can see on the right: peace in myself, peace in the world. Here you can see a summary of key moments in his life. Of relevance for the secondary street naming, I draw your attention to the 2-year period 1962-63, when he lived at 306 West 109th Street while studying and teaching at Columbia University. I will speak further about how we know about his time at this location and why it is of historical importance. Following his passing on January 22nd, 2022, there was a global outpouring of grief, including from important religious and political leaders. The United States, through the U.S. Embassy representative in Vietnam, stated in his remarks at the memorial service for Thich Nhat Hanh held on January 28th, 2022, that Thich Nhat Hanh's passing will be mourned throughout the world, but his passing will be especially felt in the United States, where throughout his life, Thai had great impact, touching lives with his teachings and forging close ties with political and religious leaders for more than 60 years. The New York Times coverage included an extensive laudatory obituary that conveys the magnitude of his contributions to our world, describing him as one of the world's most influential Zen masters, spreading messages of mindfulness, compassion, and nonviolence. Other letters of condolence came from the Dalai Lama and Senator Patrick Leahy, who noted his lifelong dedication to nonviolence, human rights, and the recognition of the good in all people have inspired our own efforts to address war legacy issues and promote reconciliation. I won't read all of the letters. They are publicly available on the internet, but some are reproduced here to give you a sense of the depth and breadth of the effect he has had. As Muthu Ricard wrote, he was one of the most respected moral and spiritual figures of our times, and a beacon of truth in his nonviolent campaigning for human rights. And Father John Deere wrote, the whole world is thinking of peace, compassion, and mindfulness because of him. As I mentioned, he was a prolific writer of over 100 books. The titles are here. All of his books are dedicated to helping us improve our relationships with ourselves, with others, and with the world. I hope this has helped you know Thich Nhat Hanh. I will now outline the reason to co-name 109th Street between Broadway and Riverside Drive, Thich Nhat Hanh Way, specifically the southwest corner of 109th Street and Broadway, and explain his association with the street. While studying and teaching at Columbia University in the 2-year period 1962-63, he lived at 306 West 109th Street, and this is documented and publicly available in his autobiographical book published in 1966, Fragrant Palm Leaves, Journals 1962-66, pictured here. Leora has also brought a hard copy of the book with the street location marked to submit to the committee for the record. Here you can see the building and its location within CB7. In this beautiful, evocative book, Thich Nhat Hanh describes in great detail his time on 109th Street and the neighborhood, including specific references to Broadway and Riverside Drive. However, just as important as the documented location is the historically important role his time on 109th Street played in his life. During this time, he went through a strong spiritual crisis that eventually resolved itself in critical insights and moments of enlightenment. The book contains a sensitive and moving account of this experience, and a sense of the magnitude of his insights at this time can be conveyed by his words shown here. I grew up in Vietnam. I learned and practiced Buddhism in Vietnam, and before coming to the West, I taught several generations of Buddhist students in Vietnam. But I can say now that it was in the West that I realized my path. His time in New York on 109th Street changed the course of his life. We can also see this from his sustained relationship with the Upper West Side throughout the rest of his life, which Lynn Fine will speak to in greater detail after me. I will just highlight that at his speech at Riverside Church, shortly after the attacks of September 11th, 2001, the 23rd anniversary of which is marked tomorrow, he said, "I feel I am a New Yorker. I feel I am an American." So why co-name 109th Street between Broadway and Riverside Drive, Thich Nhat Hanh Way? This would recognize and commemorate the historically important association of the street with Thich Nhat Hanh and his time in New York. It would recognize and commemorate a man who served as an inspiration for Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in his quest for a peaceful world. It would lend support to role models for peace, nonviolence, and compassion that are urgently needed. It would recognize and commemorate shared U.S.-Vietnamese history and interlinkages, and educate future generations on the existence of tools for peace and mindfulness that can help them to manage stress and suffering. In addition to this presentation, we have submitted to the committee and the board 125 petition signatures and 3 letters of support, as well as a letter from his family. While the petitions were being collected on the street, all the people we spoke with were very supportive and touched by the proposal. Some knew of him and signed immediately, and others who did not know him stopped to hear more. No opposition was expressed by anyone we spoke with. In this letter from Thich Nhat Hanh's family that expresses support for the co-naming of the street, his niece beautifully expresses her hope for the co-naming. She says, "My family's hope is that in the future, when people see Thich Nhat Hanh's name on the street sign, some may be prompted to learn more about his life and his struggles, what he learned, what he accomplished and inspired. Along with millions of his students across the earth, their lives will be transformed. They will be able to come and center themselves. Seeds of peace, love, compassion, and joy will blossom in them and in those around them." Here you can see more of the petitions that we submitted. And here are letters of support provided to the committee and the board. Including by David Ingber, the founding and senior rabbi at Romemio congregation located at 176 West 105th Street, who writes, "As a leader in the New York Jewish community and an active interfaith presence, I am an example of how important and universal are the teachings of this Zen Buddhist monk. In my personal path as a rabbi, I have found sustenance and inspiration in his books and presence for many decades." My own letter of support submitted to the committee and the board can be found here, which, as I mentioned, quotes extensively from his book about his time on 109th Street. Here we note that we are applying on the basis of sections 5A and 5B of the secondary street naming guidelines. As indicated, while we would only need to meet one of the conditions, we meet both. These photos provide street views of the proposed corner. I would draw your attention to the person in the red jacket who is standing at the proposed location, the southwest corner of 109th Street and Broadway. The slide also indicates the proximity to the house where he lived. And this provides a view looking the other way down the street towards Broadway, where the sign would be placed on Broadway. Here on the left, you can see the signs currently at the proposed location. While we would be happy to have co-naming signs at both ends of the street, both on Riverside and 109th and 109th and Broadway. 109th and Broadway, the southwest corner that has been proposed, is the most important one that will be seen by the greatest number of people, including students, and that would be our preference. I would now like to ask the committee to recognize Lynn Fine, who I believe is on Zoom, who will speak in more detail about Thich Nhat Hanh's influences and ongoing connection and contributions to the Upper West Side beyond the 1960s through to September 7th, 2013, when he gave his last talk in New York at the Beacon Theater before his debilitating stroke in 2014. Co-chairs and committee members, thank you again for the opportunity to present the proposal before you.
Thank you. So is if you stop sharing your screen, then Jessie can promote the other person. Is that other person with us? Yep, okay, great, thanks.
I'm here. Let's see. Okay. Hi, I want to thank you very much for considering this proposal. My name is Lynn Fine. I was born and raised on the Upper West Side of New York City, 86th Street and West End Avenue. Moved away, came back, lived there again for 20 years from 1980 to 2000, and currently live in California. As you have heard, Thich Nhat Hanh is an amazing and groundbreaking person. He passed away in 2022, but we still say is, because as one of the previous people on this renaming, when we remember, there is a continuation of the teachings and the offerings and the lifetime legacy of a person. So that is one of the possibilities that is inherent in this renaming. So Thay's life came to be one of the most unwavering beacons of peace in our world. His teaching has always been a refusal to harden around division, an effort to bring together all sides into dialogue, and to harmonize mind, heart, community, and earth in an effort to transform human society into a compassionate and loving reality for all beings. That you have heard already. This is actually from the obituary from the Union Theological Seminary, where there is a study center for engaged Buddhism, Thich Nhat Hanh Center. But his message was fully embodied in every moment of his being, which is why so many people were drawn to him. And it is that I want to focus on in these couple of minutes. After the 1960s, Thich Nhat Hanh was living in France in exile from Vietnam, but he came back to the United States from time to time. In the 1980s, he came back and he led a very remarkable walking meditation on the Upper West Side down to Central Park, through Central Park, and then to the United Nations session on disarmament. Later, he came back several years later and was again offering retreats in Central Park. But more specifically in the 80s and the 90s, because the Upper West Side was such a kind of heartfelt part of his life, he connected with the Riverside Church. He gave a large talk for 2,000 people, Riverside Church, and then again in the early 90s in St. John the Divine, and then again at Lincoln Center in the Avery Fisher Hall. And in each of those, there were like 2,000 or 3,000 people. And the embodiment of, how taking a cup of tea, he was able to make an intimate space with large numbers of people. So why is this important? As people see the name Thich Nhat Hanh on a sign, and then happily now they will be able to go to a website from the Department of Transportation and a QR code. But if they don't do that, they can go online. They will have the opportunity to experience this intimacy of capacity to deeply transform inner wounds, but also wounds in our society. His most recent book, published, I only received it today, is called How to Listen, Thich Nhat Hanh. And it is listening with compassion can solve our most pressing issues across global politics and interpersonal relationships and within our own hearts and minds. So this is crucial in our times. And in the 2000s, right after September 11th, Thich Nhat Hanh, who was in California at the time, giving a talk actually on September 13th, where I currently live in the East Bay, he made it an essential urgency to go to New York City and to give a talk again at Riverside Church. And there were lines around the block as people waited. And that talk was freely given. There was no fee for that talk, and very quickly organized. And later in the 2000s, before his stroke, he spoke also at the Beacon Theater twice, in 2009 and 2013, before his stroke in 2014. So there was always like a thread line through from his early experiences with this quite profound experience in Butler Library, this quite remarkable sojourn on 109th Street, to be then becoming a world-renowned figure who it would be a great honor for 109th Street, I think, and Broadway, and a great honor for the Upper West Side to be able to honor him, but also to honor the people here who live in that neighborhood. So with that, I will stop, and I'd like to invite Larry Ward for just a couple of final words from our presentation, if that is open.
We've heard quite a bit, but sure, we'll hear just a word or two if you have somebody else.
I
Is that
promoted
person
already.
Okay, go ahead.
He just joined.
Okay.
Yeah, I got the audio. All right, yeah.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
Sure can,
Yes.
thank you.
I am Dr. Larry Ward. I've had over a 30-year relationship with Thich Nhat Hanh as a friend, as a teacher, and as a true contribution to my spiritual journey. I want to share a poem of my own intimacy with Thich Nhat Hanh. Because of you, my feet are planted on higher ground. The sun still shines in my heart. Even though I walk through waves of birth and death, caused by the conditions of this world, I remain fearless because my path is clear. I surrender, I lay down my burden of pain by the riverside. I wake up each day hoping the world will not break my heart, but it does. Again and again, break it open, I say. I'll call on you to help me to not be fallen at the flood or carried away by the flows of fear, anger, pride, jealousy, or regret. May the holy ground of forgiveness catch me when I fall from the grace that is always present, like the moonlight appearing in the darkest of night, lighting up my path. My teacher, my breath. Keep me close to the heartbeat of my precious life and my heart's call, ever widening until the pain of all beings I can recognize as my own. And
thank you. Thank you so much. That is a remarkable way to conclude the presentation.
Can I ask one question, please?
Of course.
Because there's so much to be said about Thich Nhat Hanh, have you looked at the possibility of a plaque either on the block or at Columbia University, or something that could explain the many attributes that?
May I answer that? May I answer? Hello, can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay, I do want to note that. Actually, I was thinking even to let you know, but in fact, before we even considered the secondary naming as an option, I went to great lengths to contact the people who own the building where he lived. I offered myself to pay for the plaque. I offered myself to do everything that would be required to install a plaque. I made multiple attempts. That building is like, I don't know if it's owned by like a real estate trust. They never responded to me. If you go online, there is, even a real estate agent. I wrote multiple emails to that person. The fact that they didn't answer me was deliberate, because I know that I spoke to tenants in the building, some of who signed even the petition, who said, "Oh, I don't understand because he always writes back to me." So this is the problem, unfortunately, with plaques, is that the city does not have the power to put plaques on private buildings. And the only place a plaque would make sense would be on the building. So if, unfortunately, as I said, I tried multiple times. I tried to track them down in Virginia, New York, all over the place with no success. I'm sorry. That's why we turned to the secondary street naming.
That's a complete answer. Thank you. Okay, are there any other folks that want to be heard on this? There was, we did receive a letter or an email, I guess it was.
Yeah.
Suggesting that there were folks on the block who had not heard of this individual and
didn't see the connection.
didn't
to
see the
block.
connection,
Yeah.
and yeah.
But that's been made pretty clear now.
I think so too. So I see hands, so we'll go to Carey and then we'll just go around. Carey, then Ken, then Howard.
Sure. So I wanted to thank you for bringing the application forward. I frankly did a double take when I saw Thich Han's name on the application. From my own exploration with mindfulness, I have only heard of him spoken of, often and always with reverence. And so I'm not surprised that the people who also know of him signed the petition freely and willingly. And the only question that I had was as to the nature and timeliness of the engagement with the community. And I very much appreciate Ms. Vine for taking the time to explain that more fully. So I think this is fully warranted and something that I am honored to support.
Thank you. Ken.
Well, I first heard his name with my involvement in the anti-war movement in the late 60s and early 70s. That's when I first heard of him. And I actually may have heard him speak if he came to the University of Virginia, which I have a vague recollection he might have been actually even heard him speak. I was just wondering, did he live anywhere else in New York, or is this the only place?
He came to New York, as we heard several times, and gave public talks at the Beacon and so on.
So, I mean,
And he
just
always
the-
stayed on the Upper West Side.
But he didn't have this was the place where he lived the longest duration.
2 years, we.
2 years, yeah.
2 years, yeah.
Yeah.
I would just, I just wanted to add that it is really a beautiful book, Fragrant Palm Leaves, and where this is the place where he describes the most in his book. Very many references to it. Yes.
And it was very meaningful for him.
Yeah, I just say that even though sometimes we recognize people because of their contribution to the community and they've lived here a long time. Other people lived here a very brief time, but because of their greatness, they actually elevate us.
Yeah.
And I think, and elevate our city because of their presence, however brief it was. And I think this is one of those people.
I would like to add, when we were talking to people on the block, and everybody was so touched and they felt so grateful. They said, "Oh, thank you for doing this. Really, this person lived on this block." And 10 people from that building where he lived signed. And yes, it was an incredible experience in itself.
Thanks, Howard.
I just wanted to question again, the rules we have for this. There are so many famous people who have a 2-year connection to New York City. I would say, I would go out on a limb and say almost a majority of famous people have at least a 2-year connection to New York City. So I think we need, some better standards around this. I think this sounds like a wonderful person. I'm sorry I didn't know anything about him before this meeting, but that's my general comment.
And the guidelines do allow for a person who has extraordinary contributions to the country. And I think that going forward, perhaps it would merit tightening that.
To the particular block or
so community and country as opposed, okay. But this does meet our current requirements, so
Yes,
in my estimation. Doug?
Yeah, I just want to say in response to what Howard said, I think it's not fame. It's contribution, right now, the fame really means very little. With the internet and all of the sound bites, so I think it's contribution, not fame.
I would venture to guess that significant people who made major contributions have some connection to New York City.
Sure.
So you could fill in anything you want.
Let's hear their application. But yeah, I understand.
So I'm gonna jump in and say that 125th Street is Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard, and I'm pretty sure he never lived on it. We designated as an individual landmark, the James Baldwin House, which is as architecturally unremarkable as any butchered townhouse on a side street could ever be. It was coated with that white glossy brick. There are times in which we recognize people because of their worldwide contributions, and anybody who tries in the middle of the Vietnam War to humanize the Viet Cong to Americans has my respect. Meaning no disrespect to friends who fought in that war.
And you left out Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard.
He never lived on it?
I don't think so.
Well, at least he's from Harlem.
Well, he is from Harlem.
yeah.
Of York, I don't think he ever came to New York. The Duke of York?
There you go.
Amsterdam.
All right.
To approve.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
Yeah.
And seconded, and there's any discussion? I see none. I don't know if Andrew Rigie is still with us. So let's take a vote. All in favor? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are with us. I think Elizabeth had to go to her other commitment. And Jamie's left and Andrew probably can't see us, so it's 8 to 0 to 0 to 0. And we will present this with the others at the full board on October 1st.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, and I would like to leave this book on record with the committee.
That would be lovely, but why don't you leave it for the board itself? And
In October?
we'll put it over there next to all the zoning tomes, which, by the way, the book actually says that, he describes the place where he's living and he includes, and if you lean out the window the right way, you can see the river. And it's like, that's New York. That's, you know, that's how we kind of, every real estate agent says that's, that, you know, review.
And a
We
right.
have a mirror. and yeah. Okay, so that is the bulk of our agenda. I'm going to call for new business, seeing none. I don't think. Okay, so a big thank you, even more than usual, to Jessie, because I know that you. I think the right word is curated, that you presented these applicants and made sure that Andrew and I paid attention to them and made sure that they followed the rules. So thank you so much for all of that. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. It's moved and seconded and without objection. Thank you all for joining us. Have a good night. Good night.
Mark, I'm gonna give Jessie this book.